What up?
Hey,
What up? What up? We're here with the one and only Ángel. He is a financial manager. He's been in the financial industry for decades already. Here's gonna drop a little bit of sauce, a little bit of game on finance, on money, on how to take care of your money, how to grow your money, and most importantly, how to not lose your money in dumb stuff. So yeah, man, I appreciate you taking the time for this. And well, let's get it going, man. Just tell me a little bit more about yourself, just quick intro, and let's get to it.
thank you. First of all, thank you for having me, Charlie. And I'm gonna try to live up to those expectations that you're saying. But yeah, I do. I have been working in the industry for over 2 decades. It makes me feel pretty old, but yeah, I've been working in finance for over 22 years. I work in accounting firms first back home in Venezuela, and upon I came to Canada, I started to work in one of the five big five largest bank in Canada.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's interesting, and it's interesting that you mentioned that you started as an accountant in Venezuela, because I mean the Venezuela economics are quite interesting, to
Yeah,
say to say the least. Um, so you mentioned you came here from Venezuela. How long ago?
I came to Canada in 2009, so I've been around here for 16 years. I first came to study English, then went back to Venezuela like for a few months, and then I realized the future was here. I came back here, did my postgrad in Niagara, and I stay here ever since. And this is home now.
Nice, nice. Well, yeah, that's a great idea you had back in the back in the day, moving from Venezuela here. But from someone that actually lived there and saw how in an economic point of view, not getting in too much in politics. But can you explain us a little bit how was the inflation? How did you see things actually changing in that environment? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Many countries can have inflation and whatnot, but the thing in Venezuela turned really special. I found that people from Latin America, they understand a little bit more because they face hyperinflation in the past, or they have had left wing governments recently. Well, I needed to apply through a department in the government, like the IRS, like the Canada Revenue Agency kind of thing, saying, and you had to put like files together. Hey, I'm planning to go to Colombia for business. I'm gonna visit Charlie, and I'm gonna need to obtain $2,000. So when I explained that to people, they thought, oh, so the government gave you the money. No, no, no. They say, okay, you are allowed to buy $2,000. Is this many bolivars
Wow.
deposited here? But if they say no, you had no option. Like the only other thing that you could do is the black market, right? Which it was illegal in principle, and it was probably 20 times the price of the official dollar. So if I were going to the States and I'm applying for $1,000, let's say, for a weekend in Miami, and they say no, maybe those $1,000, if I bought them through the government, was 5 million bolivars, but if I go in the black market, perhaps it was 20 million bolivars. So it was very insane, and I was in the position of explaining that to people all the time, because when I came here, it was in the middle of that, and I applied to my postgrad through the government, and they approved. And again, it's not a grant. It's not that they paid on my behalf. Is that they approved me to pay at the official rate half of the program. So I paid half of the program at the official rate, and then the other half they said, nope, we're not gonna approve anymore. You figure it out. So let's say that the first half of my program cost me $5,000, and the other half probably cost me $40,000 because I needed to use the black market rate to pay for it. So I think it was
The,
something that I doubt that another country has dealt with that sort of economic craziness, but yeah, it was something out of the movies for sure.
so can you tell us a little bit more about what people used to do with the paper, with the pesos? Because I've heard people did a lot of things other than actually using it to buy stuff. But did you ever see?
Yeah, I mean, when the more restrictions you put on people, the more creative people are gonna get to try to get by, right? So what would people would do? I remember people that I would know for my whole life that they had never traveled in their life applying for passports. And I'm like, you have never left the country and you're 60. Like, oh, yeah, because, now they are saying, and these control had different stages, right? And they were somewhere more rigid, somewhere more loose at the beginning. They tried to put like a blanket approval. It was like, okay, every citizen is going to have an allowance of $5,000 a year. Again, it's not $5,000 that they are going to give you for free. It's that they are going to allow you to buy $5,000 if you choose to.
Wow.
So what people would do is they would like, make up a trip. They would say, "Oh, I have my cousin Charlie in Colombia. I'm gonna say that I'm going to Colombia. I'm actually have to board the plane because, as I say, you
Yeah.
have to put a file together." But they would say, "Oh, I need the whole $5,000 to stay in a hotel." Blah blah. They would apply for that. They would go visit you. They would keep the cash or get the cash and then sell it in the black market. So $5,000 would turn into 20, $30,000, right? So it was
Oh
insane
wow.
because at the other end of in the other side of the coin, there were people like me that you actually needed the dollars to pay for school in a foreign country, and they would say, nope, this thing is out of control. People are selling dollars in the black market. You're cut off. You're not gonna be able to apply this new year. So it was crazy, man. It was definitely something that stories to tell for sure.
Yeah, 1,000%. Sounds crazy. Yeah, like when people get that's a really good soundbite. When people get restrictions, people get more creative to overcome those restrictions. They don't comply. So you mentioned you were in Venezuela, then you came back to Canada. Um, in regards to the to your career, you've been working in finance in one of the big five. So what do you do there?
To give you an idea, the bank for that I work for, it has around 90,000 people, 90,000 employees, right? Like across the world. So it's a monster, right? So when I say I have worked in finance and within finance I have moved to different departments, that gives you an idea of how big it is, right? Like I first started to work in international controllers. So what we would do is the subsidiaries that we have in other countries, they would report the results to the main branch here in Canada, and we would consolidate that. We would review the results and ask the pertinent questions, do analysis in financial statements, and report it here. After that, I also work in projects when we were developing like new softwares to collect the financial information of the bank. So again, it's all within finance. Then I worked a few years in capital management, which it was people say, oh, it's like wealth management, like you were telling people where to put the money. Not at all. Capital management was more about compliance, about the minimum capital that the bank had to hold to comply with regulations in Canada.
Oh,
And now I've been working for 4 or 5 years in the finance department for GRM, which is the Global Risk Management department. Again, it's like expense control, right? Like I help that risk department to put their budget together, to control their budget, to see that they don't go over budget, to see what are the main drivers of variances in their financial results. But as I said, like it sounds like a lot of things. It's a lot of years, and I have probably seen this much of the bank, right? Like the bank is a monster. It's huge.
That's quite interesting. So if you were back in stage one, you're just coming here to Canada and you're trying to get a job in finance, how would you go about that?
I probably would go and try to study medicine here. I think as a doctor you can make a lot of money here, and you can work you can it's flexible somehow. I mean, yeah, you're on call, but don't get fooled. Like in finance, I sometimes I feel like a doctor, right? Like sometimes I have to work weekends, I have to work evenings. So first of all, I probably would study to be a doctor or a dentist. However, that being said, and this is the advice that I received when I was a kid, and it's still true. Everyone, anyone needs an accountant. Anyone needs to have financial reporting. Like if you have a pet store, you have a hospital, you have a amusement park, anything you do, you need a financial guy. You need an accountant. So therefore, is I would believe, and I'm gonna put a little caveat in here because we gotta talk probably about AI when we talk about this. But I believe that you have a job security when you study finance or accounting because it's something that is needed in any field. Let's see what AI brings to the table. Many of us accountants might not be that. But
Oh,
yeah, if anybody would come to Canada or any country for that matters and start studying finance or accounting, I honestly would say my advice, and not because I did it, would be to work in an accounting firm because it gives you a little bit of a flavor of everything. As I said, you know about everything, but you know about nothing. Like it gives you a little touch about the different industries, and it's a great school. I feel like I would say you learn more working in an accounting firm than you learn in university for sure.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So you would say like you learn more as an accounting and working than actually like studying the subject itself.
I would say so. I mean, don't get me wrong, and I hope I don't discourage any 18-year-old that is trying to go to school and is gonna drop out because of me. I think you need both, right? Like you need to go to school, you need to understand the basics. However, what is gonna make you as a professional is the experience, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the actual working in there. Like there is no way around that. You can be the number one student at school, but you don't collect the experience, you're gonna be behind, right? Like behind the guy that have been working for years and learning. But in both cases, what is key is your dedication and your level of commitment and understanding, right? Like if you really dedicate yourself to a career in finance, for example, you gotta find. I wouldn't say the joy. People say, "Oh, I love my job." That's BS to me. Like, but you gotta learn how to make your job a little bit more bearable, and you need to learn how to see the logic. At least this is the way I think, right? Like, what I love about math and accounting is it's really hard to cheat math and accounting. You know, you there is always two sides, and there is some logic component behind, right? Like it's like, oh, I book this in this side, and it's gonna affect this other side. That's the balance. I think that's the way I focus on accounting and finance to make it a little bit easier. That would be my dummy down accounting 101. Dummy down is like showing people that a transaction always have two sides, and they have to be balanced. Like you say, 2 plus 2 is always gonna be 4. Like if you have on one side 4 items, in the other side you're gonna have 4 items as well, right? Like that's a very simplified way, but I think it's something that is true at the end of the day.
That makes sense. You know, like the double side accounting was created like around the Spanish the Spanish Empire, and it was one of the most like the craziest inventions people ever had, you know, like wow, it changed the market totally because well before that I imagine people did something along those lines, but double side accounting was one of the most revolutionizing inventions that we had as a humankind. So I think that's
No,
quite true what you say.
and I'm a true believer of simplifying things for people is the best way to teach, right? Like I have a side hustle that is called Finance Talks 123, that I try to develop trainings and programs for individuals or for companies, and it's just to you know I don't like to say dummy it down, but things don't have to be that complex. Like you can explain if you can, and I think I have learned a lot of how to explain things in simple terms since I became a dad. Like my daughter is 10 years old, and I do homework with her and stuff, and it's so much simpler when you put the things in simpler terms. Even at work, man, like sometimes at work I feel like people try to use big words and stuff, and explain things in a very complex way for you to believe that they are very smart. And to me, someone that is really smart is could be understood easily, right? Like that doesn't need all those fancy words. It's going to show you A plus B equals C because of this. I think that's a trait that I would appreciate more, and that's what I try to do, right? Like I try to simplify the complexity around finance, around budgets, around accounting, because it's not rocket science. It's just if you use your common sense and logic, it works.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. Um, and that's something that I actually see in sales as well, working in sales. When you start talking about terms people don't understand, they're super fast to close. You lose the sale. Like as long as you don't explain things clearly, people are not gonna understand. And if you actually understand something, you can explain it in simple terms.
Correct.
That's yeah, definitely something that's served me quite well in my career.
I think that's a great point that you bring up, because now that you said it, is I feel like people that feel forced to use this big terminology or big words, they probably are not that confident of what they are saying.
Going into that, you said you were you had shout out to your side hustle. We can put the description in the
Yeah, we'll put it there.
yeah here down below. So yeah, just out of curiosity, tell us a little bit more about that. What do you do? How do you help people manage their finance, understand financial? Do you help students? Do you help people that are trying to manage their money? Like, explain a little bit more about that.
Well, in general, again, the name is Finance Talks 123. People can find me on Instagram. They can email me at financetalks123 at gmail.com. Basically, this is an idea that was born of trying to, as I said, share knowledge, and again, I don't want to steal that term of dummy down things, but share knowledge in a simpler way. So I post in my Instagram page a lot of posts, like trying to explain things in a simple way, and things that are gonna help you. I'm not gonna tell you what to do to manage your money, but I believe it's way more useful if I help you understand how finance work, that you can decide how you use your money, because at the end of the day, we don't have a magic a crystal ball to say, oh, if you do this, it's gonna go like that. But if you have the knowledge and you can share it and say, hey, you know what, making a budget, I can help you. Give me a couple of sessions of 30 minutes, and I'm gonna show you exactly how to do a budget, and then you can use that trade for the rest of your life, because now you know that, if you list all the expenses in certain way, and if you compare these expenses to your monthly revenues, and if you apply some sort of inflation rate to it to project it for the next couple of years, you could easily manage your budget yourself, and have a financial diagnose or self-diagnose yourself. You don't need to go and pay someone thousands of dollars to explain you how to manage something that you understand, right? So my basic point in there, or with this side hustle, is to help people become financially. It's like promoting financial literacy. I don't want to be I don't want you to see me like the expert. I want to share my knowledge with you, and I want you to feel like you have enough knowledge to make financial decisions and to understand financial results. And this could help for someone that is thinking about studying accounting, thinking about studying finance, someone that is opening a business, someone that is working on sales. Because, many times there are business owners that they don't understand how profit and losses statement works. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you can be very profitable and you don't even know the meaning of what profitable is.
Yeah, I mean that's quite crazy because I also worked in HR and uh, compliance, also helping businesses be compliant. And you'd be surprised about how much business owners don't know. It's like, hey man, like you've been running this like 30 years, and this is the first time you hear about compliance. So yeah, that's interesting. Now, in terms of stories, I like telling stories, listening about stories. Can you tell us like a story or something crazy that you've seen people doing with their money, and you were like, "Hey, bro, like this is not gonna work out."
I don't know, man. You're putting me on the spot there, but I can tell you my not my mantra, but what have worked for me. And again, I don't have a crystal ball. I haven't done it perfectly. Like I have a and again, and we go back to the previous point. It's about having the financial literacy for you to identify when you screw up, because we screw up too, right? And you say, oh, I entered this market too late, or I realized about this, but I didn't act fast enough. So what has helped me to build a decent life has been investing in real estate, and I'm one of the ones that think probably what most of the people right now are thinking. Oh, yeah, you have to have a lot of money to invest in real estate. Not necessarily. And again, we're investing in real estate. Maybe people imagine, oh, buying multiple properties. I would love that, but that comes with a certain complexity. But as a personal advice, I would say, listen, I'm not saying owning a house is better than renting a house, but owning a house is better than not owning a house. So, and let me explain further. I have always, since I started in Canada, I rented for the first 2 years. Then when I got married, I got a house. I barely had enough money for the down payment. So, everything that a financial advisor is gonna tell you not to do, I did. I pulled money out of my credit cards and my line of credits, all towards being able to put a down payment. And it has worked, because the market has hold steady. So at least your money is not gonna you're not gonna waste your money if you put it in real estate. Let's put it that way. Like what we have seen in the last 10 years, 14 years in Canada has been a crazy growth in real estate. So if you invested in real estate, your money is going to grow. But worst case scenario, with COVID and after COVID, when we started to hit the recession, and then with all the things with the states, with the tariffs and stuff, it has been unstable. But your money is there. Like it hasn't decreased. Like if you have an asset that is $500,000 or $1 million, it's not gonna be $300,000 tomorrow, right? Like the value is there. So for me, even if you're a fan of renting, because again, I'm not saying owning is better than renting in terms of living in the house per se, because owning a house is very expensive. It ties you to it, right? Like maybe you get bored, maybe I don't want to live in this kind of house anymore, but I cannot break my mortgage, etc., etc. So maybe you decide that it's better to rent. But I would say invest your capital in owning a house and then you rent it out to someone else if you want. But the fact that you have a property to your name, I think is the safest way to ensure that your money is gonna be there, right? If you keep your money in your bank, if you buy currency, if you invest, I don't know, other investments, they are risky, right? Like I think real estate is one of the safest way to start building some capital for yourself.
That's nice. That's nice. So you mentioned that you don't need a lot of money to start investing in real estate. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Well, as I was telling you, right? Like the thing is, like you have to do your homework and you have to go around the corners. Like my example, like a no that a financial advisor is gonna tell you is don't fi- don't finance something with more debt. Like don't put a debt towards debt, right? Like because at the end of the day, getting a mortgage is a huge debt, and if you get on debt to put the down payment for that mortgage, is debt on top of debt, right? I did it that way. The first few years was very tough because I was maxed out in every single aspect. But then after a few years, when you kind of like level up, and then if you move towards your next house and you sell this one and make a profit, maybe the next one you don't need to get into more debt, right? Like maybe you already have some sort of a capital to invest there, right? But it's using the tools that are out in the market. Again, as a first time buyer, you have some benefits. You can your deposit is probably smaller. Is figuring out things. What I say is like, yeah, you gotta come up with the money somehow. But people have this idea that, oh no, I'm never gonna buy a house because I'm gonna need I don't know, a down payment of 80,000, and I don't have 80,000. Well, maybe you don't have 80,000, but maybe you have a great credit history, and in your credit cards you have limits up to 50. Well, those are 50,000 that you can use. Yeah, you're maxing them out, but you have some sort of leverage to enter the market. So it's not necessarily that you are sitting on a pile of money to make your first purchase of real estate.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I heard some other people mentioning like techniques like financing with debt. But do you think it's more like risk aversion that holds people from getting into the market?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this financing with debt, I'm not saying I recommend it. It's risky, but if you're conscious of what you're doing, and again, we go back to the original point, people having financial literacy, understanding what they are doing. If you're conscious, yeah, if you're gonna max out your credit cards to party and live like a rock star, good luck with that, right? But if you're conscious that you're saying, well, I'm putting this money because I'm gonna get a house, and this is gonna revalue in time, is something that is worth it, right?
Fantastic. Angel. So yeah, we were talking about a little bit about financial mistakes, financial wins, people that actually we're making money, a little bit of real estate. Um, I'm just curious, like since you've been in the finance industry, what do you think about cryptocurrencies?
Well, the thing is, all the bankers, the ones that we work in bank, we are like told not to like cryptocurrency. At the beginning, when cryptocurrency first appeared, the belief or the fear was that this was coming to take away the business of banks, right? Because uh, in terms of people doing transactions, they wouldn't need the middleman that the bank represents. They would do it themselves. That being said, cryptocurrency people don't realize that it has been around for quite some years now. Um, I don't I don't have a personal experience with it. I'm not an expert, but I know that there are people that have made some money with it. But for me, to be honest, it's just another new thing, right? Like it's one of those things that is about jumping on it at the right moment, like when it's novel, and I believe that's the thing with investments, right? Like when something comes out and is a novelty and everyone is gonna be buying into it, it's gonna do well, right? But usually those things also they crash pretty hard.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I again, as a banker, probably and this is going to be contradictory to what I said about investing in real estate through that. But in terms of cryptocurrency or those kind of investment, I'm a little bit more risk adverse. You know, I'm like, I rather put my retirement funds in a mutual fund that is gonna give me a small return, but I know it's not something that came up only a decade ago or so, and it might crash in any moment, right? But that being said, a lot people have make a lot of money with it, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. A lot of new millionaires, new billionaires. I've seen crazy stuff around here. Um, what about in Venezuela? I know a lot of people use Bitcoin to as a way to prevent inflation.
Yeah, I mean, Venezuela. I can talk to you about Venezuela and Venezuelan economics, as I was telling you in the first part. Up to 2010, 2009, which is when I came here. Other than that, you try to keep up with the news and stuff, but honestly, it has become such a unique and bizarre place. And don't get me wrong, I love my country. I miss so many things of my country, but in terms of economy and politics, it's like Narnia. It's a different word to the rest of the world, so it's hard to keep up with it. But I can see how people can use that to protect themselves against inflation, just as they can use buying currency, which was what caused what I was explaining earlier, right? Like the control over currency, because what people were doing is like, the inflation here is a joke. What I make in a month in 2 months from now is not going to be enough to buy a piece of bread. So people were buying dollars, American dollars, to secure their money that way. And that's when the government said, oh, you know what? Like, no, you're not allowed to just put your money in a different currency because, like we want you to invest the money in here. So they put that restriction over buying dollars. But even with the restrictions, that black market that I was mentioning to you, a lot of people were using that when I was still back home before the crypto times. People were still like, even if their salary, and I'm not exaggerating, even if their monthly salary would turn into only $100, they would exchange it to try to protect themselves against inflation, right? So those are techniques that people use. Another technique, as I said, could be real estate. And, the detrimental people would say, oh, but if the market crashes, your money goes to hell. Yeah, well, the real estate market doesn't crash that often, and it's cyclical, right? Like if it crash this year, maybe in a couple of years it gets recovered, and one more time. It's about getting into things at the right time, and we don't know. We don't have a magic crystal ball, but you know the real estate crashing markets, it could be a great opportunity for someone. Like, let's say you have some money invested somewhere else, or you're sitting in that money, and the market crashes in Miami, and you can get when the 2008 crash happened in the States,
Yeah.
the stories were like, you could get a house in Miami for $50,000. $50,000 is not even a car nowadays, right? So if you're
Yeah.
there, if you take the opportunity and go for it, that's when I guess the moral of the story is the higher the risk, the higher the return, right? Like, but people
Yeah.
don't understand that when we say the higher the risk is, yeah, you you have a risk to lose it all as well, right? Like you have a risk to win big, but if it's a high risk, high return kind of situation, you have a risk of losing it all.
Everything.
Yeah,
That makes sense. But you can only go so down, If you have $50,000, you can only lose $50,000, but you can
exactly.
win millions. Yeah,
Exactly. And if you don't take the chances, you would never know, right?
fair enough, fair enough. But you can definitely lose the 50,000. Yeah. Now, let me ask you about the situation here in Canada. You hear a lot of people, without getting too much into politics, but we hear about the tariffs, we hear about the crazy, crazy taxes that we pay here in Canada, which
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of paying so much taxes, but well, I mean, it is what it is. But in terms of economy, how do you see the country? What would you see? What would you recommend people to do now? People are kind of afraid, maybe getting into a recession. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, there is a big danger when you put a very controversial person in power, and I leave that in my home country in Venezuela when all this crisis started. And I feel now, with the situation in the States and with Donald Trump, I'm not gonna villainize the guy. I'm not a fan. Not a fan of his work. I'm sure he has done some things that are okay, but he's a very controversial guy, and he's a person that really needs to have the attention of the world around him. And the U.S., for good or for bad, the U.S. pretty much dictates or play the music that we all dance in the world, especially Canada, because Canada is the biggest trading partner for the US historically, right? We have the largest border in the world. It has the largest exchange of goods over a border in the world. So, whether we like it or not, whatever happens in the US, it has a huge repercussions in here. That being said, what we have seen in this second term of Trump is that it's a lot of bark and not that much bite. I mean, yeah, he has done stuff. The problem is even only the bark can create waves of disruption in the economy, right? All these things about tariffs that people are like, oh, tariff this, tariff there. Like, I don't have right now the numbers, but I can search it up and send it to you. I'm almost positive that more than 50% of the things that he has announced, well over 50%, they haven't come true. Like, it's a lot of trend, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put a 100% tariff in aluminum. I'm gonna put this much percentage in steel. a lot of the things are just crazy thoughts of a person that wants to be a bully or look like a tough guy in front of the world. And whenever they sit down behind closed doors and say, well, the repercussions of those things that you were saying in front of a rally of people just for them to clap is like, well, if we people are gonna retaliate. Like if we do this to China, China is gonna do this to us, and therefore we are gonna end up paying more. So at the end of the day, like honestly, we Canada as a country has a lot of resources in their hands. That's a good thing. So it's yeah, the US dominates the stage, but it's kind of like an eye for an eye, right? Like we're not unprotected. Like if the US wants to bully their way in to things, like we have bargain chips, right? And that's how we have been able to push back. Same with China, same with the European Union. So for me, to be honest, it's like, yeah, it's any announcement coming from the US can create disruption. But now, after, I don't know, I don't think he has 2 years in this period. I think it's a year and a half. It creates less waves, because now people are more like familiar with, oh, that's just bark. Let's see what really happened. But when he first took power this second term, I remember in the bank there was a big announcements, and we were all on our toes. Oh, what's going to happen? This industry is going to collapse. That other industry is going to collapse. Nowadays, it's like, oh yeah, I heard that he's going to try to put tariffs. Let's see how the negotiations go. And at the end of the day, if you're focusing on your local economy, Canada, I think, is in a good place right now. It's good to invest. The best indicator that you can see is when you go to big cities like Toronto, you see all those construction sites and stuff. Like Canada is still in building mode, right? Like it's a very big country, and economy wise, yeah, as pretty much everyone, we depend on the U.S. in a lot of things, but Canada produces a lot of things too. So I don't think it's a bad time to be in Canada or to be investing in Canada, and even in the U.S. Like again, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Maybe all this instability that Trump creates might drop the prices of real estate in the U.S. in the next couple of years, but that that's going to bounce back, right?
Well, that's interesting, man. Well, I think this is the best place to finish it. I appreciate you coming here. This was the one and only Angel. I'm gonna leave down your links. A shout out to your small business. A shout out to your startup, and like, yeah, hope to meet in another occasion, man.
Sounds good, man. A pleasure talking to you. And anytime, give me a shout, and we'll be talking.
Absolutely, man. Hey, have a good one.
Have a good one.